phrase I like to apply to a lot of things is you have to earn it. You have to earn the right. And that's a common phrase, right? You hear people talk about it most often when it comes to like work ethic. You have to earn it, right? You have to do the work. You have to put in the time, and that's true. Right? It's good advice, but it's the principle, it's the concept behind it that I find so applicable when it comes to logic, right? And trying to be logical and rational, because that's in many ways what being logical and rational is. It's making sure you've thought through it, right? You're being deliberate, you're being thoughtful, and you've considered all the aspects of it, and therefore you've earned the right. And where I've talked about it many times is when it's coming to like making a decision or forming a belief or an opinion. You should earn the right to form that belief, particularly if you have a high confidence in it, particularly if you say you're certain about something or you know something. You have to earn it. You have to do the work. You have to make sure you've considered all different aspects of it. You have to make sure you've considered your own biases and blind spots and all that stuff to earn the right to say, this is what I believe. At least that's how I feel you should approach it. You don't have to, but if you want to make sure you're being logical, rational, etc., that's the work you have to do so that you can have the confidence to say, this is what I believe. I started to apply that even a step further, though, to my emotions. So if I feel sad, if I feel angry, if I feel happy, if there's any kind of general form of discomfort or pleasure in the categories that I put it, what I've started to do is more of an experiment than anything. I don't know if it's a long-term thing, but is to apply that same concept. Have I earned the right to say that I feel sad right now, or that I feel angry, or that I feel happy potentially? Although happy's kind of a better one, but and you might say like, well, what the hell does that mean? Have I earned the right to feel this? Our feelings are our feelings. That's just what it is. I don't know that I believe that in that same vein as somebody might say it, right? A lot of people would say that I'm pretty skeptical of, I guess, my own mind, because that's all I can really speak of, but the human mind in general. And that's why I think it's so important to be thoughtful, to be logical, to be mathematically logical in your thinking and really break it down. Because often what presents in our mind, the thoughts we have, the things that we believe, we can kind of trace it back and see like, well, what's that really rooted in? You can see the biases, you can see the identity issues, you can see all the mental flaws that play into it. I don't think our emotions are all that different, right? It's not to dismiss emotions and say they're totally arbitrary or they have no purpose. They certainly do. Many of them are functional depending on the context and the timing of it. But I just no longer assume that the emotion I feel is legitimate, is justified, is valid. I know I am feeling it, but I don't trust that my mind got me to that place, right? That it triggered something and got me to feel angry or sad or whatever it is. I don't trust that I got to that place in a valid, justified way necessarily. And what I want to do is I want to earn it. So what I do now is if I feel any form of that discomfort, anxiety, sad, fear, I say to myself, okay, what's happening? What's the root of this? Why am I feeling this? Literally, if it's fear, for example, what exactly am I afraid of? And then I apply kind of the next level why concept, which is, let's say I have a big meeting at work, and I say, well, I feel anxiety about that. I'm nervous, right? Now I have that feeling. What I would normally do, my default would just be, ooh, okay, that's the feeling. I'll just walk around with that. And maybe now it impacts me throughout the day. I don't feel good. I'm a little short with people. I have a bad temper, a bad attitude because I'm nervous about this thing. It's making me uncomfortable. Now what I do is say, okay, like I'm assuming this is neutral. I know my mind is trying to put a negative charge on it, but let's look at it. What actually am I nervous about? Well, I'm nervous I might not do a good job and my boss is going to be on. Okay, well, why does that make me nervous? What am I afraid of actually? Well, I'm afraid that if I do that bad job and my boss is on, maybe she's not going to be happy with me and maybe I don't get promoted or maybe, and then what I quickly realize often is I start catastrophizing and I start running it down to where now I'm out of a job, I'm broke, I'm living on the street with my family, I can't feed them anymore, and I go to this crazy place, right? And that's obviously, as you start to look at that objectively, you recognize, well, that's not really rational thought there. Let's be realistic about it. And I forced myself to get to like an actual, valid, legitimate aspect of what is really driving that discomfort and nervousness or fear. And more often than not, as probably isn't a huge surprise, there's not really anything there. It's something my mind has created, right? It assumes something. It's made some leaps in logic. It's made some assumptions. It's done some bad math that got me to a place. It means well. It's trying to look out for me. It knows it's maybe an important situation, but the level the degree or sometimes even just the emotion that I'm feeling is not justified in that. And I'll recognize it. Now, sometimes I'll recognize, like, hey, there is some reason to be afraid here, right? This is an important meeting. There's going to be people on it. It is important. So, but it allows me to do two things. It allows me to get the right amount of emotion and say, okay, but worst case scenario, like I'm not going to lose my job over this, right? A, so let's remove that for now. Let's not be crazy. But B, it allows me to then rationally think through, okay, well, if that's what I'm afraid of, now let me rationally, logically address that and make sure I prepare for the meeting, or I have a meeting with my boss beforehand to go through what I'm going to present and make sure she's comfortable with it, or whatever the rational thing is. It just takes that emotion and says, hey, did you earn it? Should you really have it? And if the answer is yes, well then okay, let's address it rationally. Let's not guess. Let's not assume. Let's not make pretend we know what's going on when realistically we don't. And I found that to be super useful to this point.